right, well, thanks everyone for coming tonight. And as Pierre said, I teach at California College of the Arts, and I am a scientist, so it's an unusual place for a scientist to have ended up, but it's been, I've been there, this is my 6th year, and it's a pretty perfect job for me. So let's destroy the Hollywood sign. Let's just do it. So that's probably, in terms of what gets destroyed in bad disaster movies, the Hollywood sign is a sure sign that there's a disaster happening. If it gets, and it's usually one of the L's falls first, and then an O. And then probably second to the Hollywood sign is the Golden Gate Bridge. And they never show any tourists on it when it gets destroyed, which is just, that's like a big thing that's wrong with that. But so, let's see, I can't remember which ones you told me not to touch.
Up and down.
Okay, I'm just going to do the arrows. There we go. So I teach a class at CCA called Bad Science at the Movies, which is an introductory geology class told through bad Hollywood disaster movies. And sometimes teaching science to rather, you'd expect it's an unusual population, a group of artists and designers. I get a lot of students who come in with some anxiety about science and math, saying, I'm not a science person, I'm not a math person, as if the rules of the universe didn't apply to them. And so I try to make students fall back in love with science, because I think it's something that we all, when we're very young, we all are captivated by science, whether it's, collecting bugs or seashells or being in love with dinosaurs. And so getting students to really recapture that sense of joy and wonder at the natural world is one of my sort of goals as an educator. And so Bad Science at the Movies is a class I've been teaching now for like 7 or 8 years, and it's a really effective way to teach science to anybody, but particularly to artists and designers. They can use their unique set of skills to really squeeze the most value out of it. And so it's sometimes like herding cats or taming lions, but I have a lot of fun. This is, our photographer caught me doing that one day in class, and they were very scared. Super fear. Oh, this is just like you're in my class, because I always do the slides the wrong way. So this is just a selection of some of the fine and fabulous bad Hollywood disaster movies that could await you if you were a student in my class. And you could teach this class sort of with any flavor of science. You could teach it as a biologist and show movies like Contagion, or any movie about like disease, or even Jurassic Park, which is a movie I show in this class. You could teach it certainly for physics, or if you were a planetary scientist. I teach it with a flavor of geology, because that's my background. And so we start in outer space with movies like Deep Impact and Armageddon. We then move into the Earth, and we watch movies like The Core. And then we're actually just this semester, we're now just finishing up earthquake movies like 10.5, which I really hope that none of you have seen, because it's terrible. It's a 3-hour mini-series that was shown on NBC over 2 nights. It took 6 hours with commercials. And it was so good they made a second one called 10.5 Apocalypse. And just so you're aware, you can't have a 10.5 earthquake. We don't have any faults long enough. It would circle the whole planet, and everyone would die. And it's just not bad enough in this movie. Then we move on to volcano movies, like Volcano and Dante's Peak, which has Pierce Brosnan. He's my favorite movie geologist. And then more recent things like Magma Volcanic Disaster. I mean, it actually should be Lava Volcanic Disaster, but you'll see that sometimes it's just the very beginning of a movie's problems, its title. Then we do watch some movies about climate, like Twister, which has okay science. Day After Tomorrow. We then move into watching movies that deal with evolution and life, things like 1 Million Years BC, which is a classic, Jurassic Park. And then sometimes if we have time at the end of the semester, we finish with this new classic, 2012, which is as if all of these movies went to a party, made some questionable decisions, and then that would be the movie that was the result of that time. It's also too long. If I was the queen of movies, movies would be 45 minutes long. So, 3 questions that we're going to sort of talk about today. When we look at these movies, the first question we ask is it possible or plausible? Usually the answer to that is no. But then we sometimes have to just say to ourselves, okay, let's assume it's possible or plausible. Is there at least some truthiness involved? Sometimes is the answer to that. And then the last question, why does it matter if movies have bad science? So movies are just for fun, right? So the movie that started this all for me was this film, The Core, which came out when I was in graduate school at the University of Oregon. And when you're in grad school, you like to go to the movies with your friends, and we almost got kicked out of the movie theater because we were laughing so hard and just tearing it apart. And this movie, it's good because statistically significant, 100% exciting. That's a good review. And The Core, the premise of The Core is that the core has stopped rotating, which, don't worry, is not a thing that physicists think can happen. So this class is actually, I think helps students because college is like a time of anxiety. And so I give them some things that they don't have to worry about. Like you don't have to worry about the core stopping, and then the Earth's magnetic field failing, and then microwaves from space are coming, and also microwaves destroy the Golden Gate Bridge. It's really crazy. So what do we do? How do we stop this? Well, actually, how do we start this? How do we start the core back rotating again? We send this Earth ship named Virgil with a bunch of terranauts, not astronauts. And what are we going to do? We're going to bring some nuclear weapons because that's the best way to solve any problem. And we're going to launch some nuclear weapons into the core, and that's going to restart it, and then everything's going to be fine. Everybody dies except for 2 characters in the ship. Sorry, I'm a terrible person to watch movies with because I spoil them. One of the biggest issues with this, so in the class I usually start with a lecture and then we watch the movie, stopping and starting. I fast forward through anything that has like feelings or kissing, anything gross like that. But we stop and we do a lot of these back of the envelope calculations. Like they bring 500 megaton nuclear weapons with them. Like, is that enough?
No.
No. The first problem is that the largest nuclear weapon ever detonated on Earth was in 1961 by the Soviet Union, and it was called Tsar Bomba, and it was 50 megatons. It was about 7 feet in diameter and about 30 feet long. It's really big. The nuclear weapons they use in movies are about, you can like put your arms around them and they're about yay long because you have to have the characters be able to move them around the Earth ship. There was a review by Phil Plait, who writes the blog Bad Astronomy, when this came out, and he calculated based on the rotational energy of the core how much, if you could turn all the energy of the bomb into restarting the core, how much would you need? And he estimated that they were about 335 bombs short. 100 megaton. We don't have, in the world's arsenal, we do not have this much nuclear power available to us.
But how do they even turn energy into momentum?
Also, yes, there's that. And they have no way to develop, to basically have torque. There's a lot of other really stupid things in this movie. So, but it works after everyone dies and is sacrificed to the core. Yay, the planet's saved, and Hilary Swank and the guy who plays the geologist, they fall in love. They're saved by whales at the end of the movie.
Thankful whales.
And there's a hacker, too, because it's 2003, and these movies don't understand how science works, how math works, or how the internet works. But proof that Hollywood's been making bad science movies for a long time. This film is a classic, Krakatoa, east of Java, that came out in 1961, the incredible day that shook the Earth to its core. So the truthiness here is that Krakatoa was a real volcano that erupted in 1882, blew up an island, and caused a lot of unrest in that area. Big problem, though, is that Krakatoa is demonstrably west of Java. It's just, I'm fairly certain they had maps in the 60s. So we stop movies and do geography checks a lot, because I think a lot of times students, especially now with smartphones, aren't super dialed in with a great familiarity of world geography. And so this is a really easy way to start fact-checking movies. And then we have, you know, the new modern classics like Sharknado with the great actors of our time, Tara Reid and Ian Ziering. And so Sharknado, and now I think they're on Sharknado 3, which is, you know, why not? It's done wonders for these guys. And so Sharknado, the premise is that there's tornadoes in LA that are bringing sharks from the ocean, and the sharks are then attacking everyone, as they do. And so I thought when this came out, like, is there a kernel of truth to this? And it turns out that there is actually historic evidence, not of Sharknadoes, but this is a story from the New York Times from the 1870s about a small water spout, so a small tornado, that actually picked up some baby, what was it? Alligators, baby alligators. So that's pretty, I mean, they could make like alligator-nado.
Gator-nado.
Gator-nado.
Why not just Gator Gator?
There we go. And we all decided it here. Perfect. And so then we do have, you know, one of the things about this class is that it really leads to discussions about sort of the nature of science and the nature of scientific inquiry and what scientists actually do. So this film, Volcano, is The Coast is Toast. Great tagline. Also, these movies, almost always, their title font is on fire. That's how you know it's the Earth. And yeah. And so this is the volcano actually erupting out of the La Brea tar pits, which is not, again, not put it on your list of things that are not going to happen to you in downtown Los Angeles. And this is a scene from the film where we have Anne Heche's character, Amy, the lady scientist. You know, she's meant to be almost like the head of the Geological Survey, and yet she can't help but fall in love with Rourke, the FEMA guy. It's a rather unlikely May-December pairing there. And then this is Rachel, Amy's sidekick, who dies at the hands, well, not the hands, but at the lava of the volcano. And this is a scene when Amy's trying to convince Rourke that she has intuited that there is a volcano under LA. And they're, you know, they have this really sort of great wooden conversation about lava. And then Rourke says, we have a history of that here in downtown. And Rachel says, Pericutin, 1943. A Mexican farmer sees smoke coming out of the middle of his cornfield. A week later, there's a volcano 1,000 feet high. There's no history of anything until it happens. Then there is. Okay, so that's actually, Pericutin is a real volcano that did literally, in the span of a week, go from being a crack in the ground to a 5-story volcano on a farmer's field in Mexico. So there's Pericutin. The issue with her statement there is that there are a lot of other volcanoes in that part of Mexico as a result of the Cocos Plate being subducted under Mexico there. A volcano there is not surprising. I mean, it was surprising for the farmer, right, and for the people who had to be relocated and 3 people who were killed by it. But there is a history there. And so these movies have a way of both mystifying and sort of demeaning science. They make it magical and yet sort of inscrutable. So that's a kind of silly thing. But then students, of course, ask me, like, oh, you big grump, do you like any of these movies? And I've seen most of these films like 60 or 70 times, so yeah. And I'm not actually a huge movie buff. Like, if you ask me if I've seen any other classic movie, I probably haven't seen it. But Jurassic Park is probably, out of all the films I show, it is one of the films that the basic premise of it is not possible, but there is a scene in it where they see the scientists see the dinosaurs for the very first time, and they really captured that sort of sense of wonder and sort of falling down joy at seeing those dinosaurs for the first time. And so that's my favorite scene in the movie, and it gives me goosebumps now. And so Jurassic Park has actually aged pretty well in terms of these movies. Some of the problems with Jurassic Park, not to ruin your dreams, most of the dinosaurs in Jurassic Park are actually from the Cretaceous period, not the Jurassic, except for Brachiosaurus. Brachiosaurus is from the Jurassic. And so some of you are thinking, but Jurassic Park sounds cooler. you would have thought Cretaceous Park was cool too. Some of the other issues, Velociraptor here, see how tiny Velociraptor is. Velociraptor is the size of basically like a big turkey, not 6 feet of terror. But 2 large turkeys chasing 2 children around a kitchen wouldn't have been that exciting. They did actually, after the movie came out, scientists discovered a larger raptor called Utah raptor that did stand about that tall. And so the basic premise of Jurassic Park is that you can find mosquitoes in amber, and then you can get dinosaur DNA, you can put it in a frog, and then put that embryo in an ostrich egg, I know, and then yay, baby dinosaurs. There's a lot of problems with it. Mostly, the big problem is that the way that we form amber is it's a drying reaction. So there's nothing left in those insects that are preserved. But the insects themselves are actually problematic. And I did bring in some samples of amber with insects preserved in them, and I brought in a little microscope so you guys can see it after, maybe at the end of the evening, because I know I'm going to run out of time. The big issues with mosquitoes, sucking the dinosaur DNA and then using that to make new dinosaurs, is that we do actually have members of the mosquito family, which is within the Diptera, the flies. We do have them going back into the Mesozoic when dinosaurs were alive. We know that. The problem is that we don't have them going back really far. This is the oldest fossil modern mosquito, so similar to what we have today. And it's about 76 to 79 million years old, which is putting it just at the tail end of the dinosaurs. Dinosaurs go extinct 65 million years ago. It's male, so it's a male mosquito. Female mosquitoes are the ones that have the blood meals. They do that with mammals, not with reptiles. So that's the other problem, small problem. But then, of course, the question well, have people found mosquitoes in amber? And they have. This is a specimen of amber that actually has 12 mosquitoes in it. These are some of the close-ups. This is from a company called Amberica West. If you ever want to buy really expensive amber for someone, me, they really have great stuff. They sold a piece of amber that had a lizard in it for $70,000. So these are all mosquitoes in amber. Unfortunately, the amber is about 25 million years old, so too young by about 40 million years to have any dinosaur DNA in it. But Jurassic Park is an example of the science finally catching up a little bit, because it looks like probably within the next maybe 10 or 20 years, scientists will have cloned a woolly mammoth. And this is a fossilized woolly mammoth that had melted out of some permafrost in Siberia. Woolly mammoths are a potential extinct animal that we can clone. We have living relatives, the elephants. They've been preserved through drying and freezing, which we all know is a great way to preserve leftovers forever in your freezer. Same works for these guys. Most of them, when they're found in really good condition, they actually still in their stomachs have their last meal preserved. So it's sort of like nature's Tupperware. And it's a pretty exciting, National Geographic's done a bunch of stories on this and the subsequent research. There are a lot of ethical questions about this. Just because we could do this, should we? Should we make endangered animals like elephants engage in this very risky and very biologically costly endeavor? Not to mention all the resources, et cetera, et cetera. But I do have some woolly mammoth hair with me, and I apologize, I forgot the woolly mammoth tooth, but I know, I'm the worst. So what's the big deal? Humans have been fascinated by people and dinosaurs living together for a long time. 1 million years BC, famous for Raquel Welch's fur and leather ensemble. This movie, there's no talking in it, they just sort of click and whistle at each other. And there are dinosaurs. There's also a giant tortoise and a giant tarantula. And so this is, this movie's from 1966. I found this movie today when I was putting this together, Cowboys versus Dinosaurs, which apparently came out this year, and I can't believe I missed it in the theaters. But apparently it involves dinosaurs emerging from a mine explosion, and then they have to fight some cowboys. Cowboys versus dinosaurs. Let the best species win, which I just think is great. So it's something that captivates us But we actually have, this is from the Creation Museum, so there are actually people who think that this really happened, that dinosaurs and humans really did live together. And this is an example from the Creation Museum that's really shockingly anti-science, but yet they're using science here in their reconstructions of the dinosaurs, in their animatronic displays. And then this is the results from a recent survey that over half of Americans disagree that humans developed from earlier species. And over 40%, 41% disagreed that, or sorry, that 30% agreed and 29% didn't know if humans and dinosaurs lived at the same time.
This is in America, right?
Yeah, no, this is in America. This is in. So, if we look at the state science standards grades for, this is the most recent available, 2012, California and Washington, D.C. are the only states in the U.S. that get an A grade for science. The average for the whole country is a C-, and you can see there are many states that get a full F for their science grades. And so it actually turns out that we do get a lot of our science education from film. And it's problematic when most of the science in movies is bad, and it's especially problematic when then movies are made about things that are actual risks that we have to worry about, like the San Andreas Fault, all of the faults we have that are active in California. And then this is just a quote, and I'm going to finish up the next slide. That this Thomas Jordan, he actually, the director of SCEC, he was the science advisor to San Andreas. I gave them free advice, some of which they took, but much of which they didn't. Magnitude 9s are too big for the San Andreas, and it can't produce a big tsunami. But what we all pay attention to is like the whiz-bang special effects and The Rock flying a helicopter and doing all sorts of weird underwater stuff. So the final assignment for this class, the students have to take what they've learned, they have to make a movie script that's bad still, it's a bad movie, but it has good science. And so the way that they make it still a bad movie is I've created bad science movie bingo with various categories. And your free space is love, because everybody always falls in love. What better time to fall in love than in the middle of a horrendous disaster? And so some things that happen in all the movies, like birds act real weird. Like scientists are sort of messy, which is true. Hot things aren't equally hot. Nuclear weapons will solve all your problems, and we should never, ever consult maps, ever, ever. And so I just did this real quick in my office today for one of these films, and the core gets actually a double bingo, which is pretty, I think you win, you definitely win if you get double bingo like that. So that's just one movie. I think most of these films you can get bingo multiple times. And so for the final assignment, students, they take a few things from each category, write a script, and then they make movie posters, which they can use their art and design skills for. So just a brief plug, the 5th to the 7th of November, CCA is hosting a symposium called Exploring Science in the Studio. It's sponsored by a National Science Foundation grant, of which I'm the PI. And it's 3 days of really amazing talks, panels, case studies, a keynote, exhibitions. It is a ticketed event. You can go to our website, and that has all the information. On the 6th, which is the Friday night, there is an evening of free, open to the public exhibitions on the San Francisco campus of CCA. So I really encourage you to attend. If you have any questions, I have my cards, and you can email me about this, or just Google that. And I would love to see you guys there. And it should be a fun 3 days. And yay, science. Thanks.